All right, all right. Good morning, everybody, or good evening, depending on where are you situated on the globe. My name is Toyer, and I'm super excited to be welcoming today an author of a couple of brilliant books. I'm just finishing one of them, which is called Mindful Self-Discipline, which I find fascinating, and I think it's a topic that we need to talk more about, a lot more about, in the space of business, in the space of entrepreneurship, because I do believe we had a conversation with my guest just prior to the podcast. I do believe discipline is super, super important. Getting things done, being consistent on creating progress in the areas that matter most, but in one way or another there's two camps, right? There's the camp of the Joko Willings and David Goggins of the world. Discipline is freedom, like, you got to push it through. So it's, in a way, it's a really, really great camp, but in a way it's kind of forceful, right? And then there's the other camp of, like, you got to let it go, you shouldn't hustle, like, which is great as well. You gotta take care of yourself and all these things, but what if we combine them, right? And this book is providing some fantastic practical mindsets, ideas, tools of how can we achieve what we want by applying mindful self-discipline. Giovanni, it's so great to have you. How are you today?
Hi, Stoyan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Did you have your meditations today?
Yes, everything. My morning routine looks exactly the same every single day.
So let's maybe start from that. I read in the book somewhere that you wake up 2:30 in the morning and you have your morning routine. Can you tell us all about that?
Sure. So I wake up 2:30 every morning. I sleep biphasic sleep, so I do 5 hours of sleep at night from 9:30 to 2:30. Then I wake up. I have about 8 hours of activity, and then I have about the 2 missing hours of sleep late morning. So like this, I get my 7 hours, and it's a nice rhythm for me because there's sleep, 8 hours of activity, sleep, 8 hours of activity. So there's that nice break in the middle of the day. So yes, I wake up at 2:30 a.m. in the morning. I do some stretches. I take a cold shower. Then I go for a long meditation session. I do some physical exercise and some breathing, and then I begin my workday at around 7 a.m.
And do you feel fresh and rejuvenated when you start?
Uh, I feel fantastic every day. At the end of the morning routine, just feels great, especially with all of these exercises and with the breathing and meditation and the martial arts. I do a bit of martial arts in the morning as well. Yeah, it just feels great.
I love it, man. I love it. I hope we can inspire some more people to, if not wake up to 2:30 in the morning, at least prioritize having a morning routine. But tell me about the book and the topic of mindful self-discipline. Why did you decide to research, study this topic, and actually write a book about it?
Right. So after reading over 300 books in the topics of meditation, mindset, psychology, spirituality, all of this, I realized that self-discipline is, as some authors put it, the father of all virtues, or some of them say the king of all virtues. And if that's the case, I would say that awareness is the mother of all virtues. So the way that I define self-discipline is that self-discipline is not self-punishment. It is self-respect. It is your capacity to live in harmony with your goals, with your values, with your aspirations. It is you keeping your promises to yourself. And every time you do that, your sense of empowerment, your sense of self-respect, of self-love, your self-esteem increases. So self-discipline, the way that I see it, there are two key elements to it: awareness and willpower. And what we see in most work on most books and videos on self-discipline out there is they fully focus on willpower. So I call this the military approach to self-discipline. It works for some people, it works sometimes, but it's definitely not for everybody. It's not as sustainable. It takes a lot of energy. It's like trying to push a boulder uphill. Some people can do it and they're going to get really strong and they're happy with that, fine. But if you practice awareness first, that's what's different about mindful self-discipline. It's awareness based. If you first practice awareness, then willpower, practicing willpower feels more natural. It feels easier. It's like rolling boulder downhill rather than pushing it uphill. So that is the unique approach of mindful self-discipline. And I find that people are resonating with this so much. People that, they would hear self-discipline or self-control or willpower and they would turn the other way. Now they can receive this message. They can connect with it and they see like, this is actually what I needed, but I could never follow it before.
Fantastic, man. And since you mentioned willpower, it was interesting for me to read your book and to discover these two perspectives on willpower. First of all, you mentioned in the book we should probably not look at it as a battery, but more as a muscle. So maybe let's just dive into that a little bit. Why should we look differently at willpower?
Sure. So there's this phenomenon called decision fatigue, and it's real. It happens. And decision fatigue means the more decisions you need to make, the more the more cognitive load you have, the less willpower will be available when you need to use it. So that's a phenomenon that happens in most of the cases for most people. Now, based on this idea of decision fatigue, there's this theory called the ego depletion model. And the guy that created this theory, Roy Baumeister, he's one of the biggest researchers on willpower out there. And he's the one that wrote the foreword to my book. But the way that people are interpreting his theory is even different. It's even more restrictive than the way he himself conceived it. But the idea in this theory is that willpower is like a depleting battery. Every time you use it, you spend a bit of it until there's a time that it's finished. And you cannot use your willpower again unless you replenish with sleep, with a proper meal, with rest, with meditation, etc. That is the original theory about willpower. Now, some newer studies that came after this theory, especially by Carol Dweck, the author of Mindset. Most people know her as the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. So they discovered in their experiments that the amount of willpower you have depends on many things other than the level of glucose in your body. They realized that the amount of willpower you have depends on the amount of willpower you believe you have. And it also depends on how you frame the self-control conflict ahead of you. And it also depends on how important that exercise of self-control is for you, how motivated you are to win that conflict, so to speak. So all of these purely internal, purely mental or psychological elements influence the amount of willpower you have. Now, this is very interesting because if my phone has 5% battery, I cannot believe that it has 100 and make it increase even 1%, right? So the phone is a depleting battery. But the beliefs that I have about my own willpower and capacity, that will make me increase the level of willpower I have. So obviously the idea of willpower being a depleting battery, it's not the whole story. So my conclusion is that willpower is a psychological phenomenon with a biological basis. The level of glucose, of rest in the body will influence how easily you can tap into willpower, but it's not the ceiling of it. It's the bottleneck is not our body, it's our mind. And understanding this is really important because it gives you back the power. That you cannot give an excuse that, I'm low on willpower now, that's why I made this poor decision. No, it's you have the power to tap into deeper reserves whenever you need, if that thing is really important for you.
Just like when you're in the gym and you're making reps and you're like, I can't take any more, but then you have a personal trainer who's pushing you and saying, come on, man, you can do it. Then there's some extra energy stored there, right? Like just like that. But how do we increase the belief that we have more willpower?
By going through exercises of willpower. Willpower is like a muscle. It's a muscle in the mind. So the more you exercise your willpower and you have a little bit of a taste of success, then your confidence in yourself, in your own capacity increases. And with that, the amount of willpower that is available for you also increases. And so I say we need to do both things. We need to treat willpower as a sort of a finite energy that we want to conserve. We don't want to be wasting willpower in meaningless decisions every day. So we want to make sure we don't go into decision fatigue, but at the same time, we want to be emphasizing that willpower is like a muscle and we need to train it. We need to rely on it because we cannot design a life. And that's, unfortunately, that's an idea that is very common these days on YouTube and some books and in the blogosphere on this topic, that, self-discipline is a myth and willpower doesn't work. And we should just use some little hacks, some little tips to build habits. And that's the only thing we can rely on. If you don't train your willpower, you cannot rely on your willpower. It's as simple as that. Willpower doesn't work if you haven't trained it. It works if you have. And it's a really important distinction to make because, again, if you believe those theories, then you're not believing in your own willpower. And therefore, you are decreasing it even further.
Thank you for sharing that, man. And thank you also for emphasizing on the fact that we need to conserve willpower. Decision fatigue is real, right? And some of the most successful achievers in any field, business, politicians, sportsmen, they realize this phenomenon and they're very careful about when do I make decisions? Can I delegate most of the decisions? Can I automate things so my decision making power could be spent mindfully only on the things that really matter and everything else, like we have the Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerbergs that are wearing the same t-shirts every day, right? So it's super interesting, and since the audience of the podcast is many of the listeners super achievers, people, entrepreneurs, business leaders, executives, what I found really interesting in the book was when you talk about, and I'm trying to pronounce it right, hyper hypo
Hyperopia.
hyperopia. Hyperopia. Thank you. So what is hyperopia? Why should we care about it?
Okay, so most people don't have self-discipline and willpower. Some people are in the other end of the spectrum. They have too much of it, meaning that it's not balanced. So hyperopia is a term we see in the psychological literature. It means an excessive productive orientation, meaning that you want to make use of every minute of every second of your life, and it's all about productivity. And you feel guilty if you take a rest, or if you're guilty if you just kind of stop and smell the roses along the way. So if you suffer from hyperopia, you're going to achieve more in the short term, but in the long term, you will probably have burnout. Sooner or later, you get to a point of burnout. Research has shown that people who are too much into hyperopia, they end up regretting that they're not really enjoying certain things along the way. That they wish they would take things a little bit slower. So the way to prevent that is to make sure that your self-discipline is balanced and sustainable, right? Work today so you can work tomorrow and the day after. That's the philosophy. So you need to make sure that you include enough breaks, time for sleep, time for play, time for unplug and not think about anything work related when work is not even in your radar. Like, this is extremely important. I have one day a week. For me, it's Fridays when I'm completely offline. So I'm not thinking about work. I'm not receiving any messages. I'm not checking any email. It's really offline, really a break. And I wish more people would do that because it's amazing. You get perspective, you get rest, and in the long term, you make better decisions.
Thank you, Giovanni, for sharing that. Reminded me a few months ago, I led a workshop with a group of entrepreneurs. It was a productivity workshop and very successful founders. And we had a mastermind session where each of them had to share something they're struggling with. So we were 5 people in a breakout room on Zoom, and each of them started sharing, taking turns. So 3 out of the 4 people that were there with me, they shared things are going well. We're moving. I don't have any questions about the business, about the product. It's just about a matter of time. But I cannot stop feeling guilty when I finish work, be it at 6, 7, 8 p.m., because there's so much more to do. So even if I'm not working, my mind is still there. I'm still stressing about it because there's so much more to do. And it kind of relates a lot to what you're saying is you can actually be a lot more productive if you decide and choose to say, hey, I've been extremely focused today. And even if I haven't, but hey, let me give myself some credit. But now I have to balance it out. I'm putting so much energy into it. So what can I do to nurture my soul, to nurture my energy, to spend
Mm.
some good time with the people that I love, to have some fun, to balance it out. And by the way, guys, you're not gonna find this in other books about self-discipline, but that's why I love this one because it's so much more real. We're human beings. We try to be superhumans. We try to be perfect, but it doesn't work. We are not perfect. Giovanni is not perfect. He looks handsome and he has a great book and everything. But I gotta tell you, I'm sure that Fridays or some other days he's also allowing himself to not be so disciplined. But it is part
Mm.
of the plan. When you have a mindful plan, you
Mm.
actually it's part of it. You're connected. It's part of the purpose. So tell me about the fire and water. I love this metaphor. The two forces, fire and
Mm.
water, and how can we balance them out?
Yeah, yeah. So, I like to think of our life as having different areas. So you have your career, you have finances, you have your health, physical and mental, you have relationships, you have personal growth, etc. And we want to live in a way that every week has a little bit of time dedicated to all those areas. Now, you may be in a phase of your life that you want to, double down on career and finances, and that's great. But if you completely neglect health or relationships, one day you're going to have to pay for that. And so the whole idea of mindful self-discipline is work today so you can work tomorrow. Be disciplined today so you can be disciplined tomorrow. So that means not only being disciplined about showing up for your work tasks and being focused, but also be disciplined about your breaks, right? About rest. I know that if I remove self-discipline out of the equation for me and I just go in my own nature, I gravitate towards doing each time more work, right? So I can easily go and work 60, 70-hour week. That's where I would gravitate towards. So I need self-discipline also to make sure that, what, this time I will go to bed and this is important for me. And I'm going to be disciplined about this. I'm going to protect those 7 hours of sleep the same way that I would protect a meeting with an important client. I make sure that nothing bothers that. So we need to apply our self-discipline to the other areas of life as well. I mean, if you are a 21-year-old dropped out of college and you just your startup is your life and that's the only thing you care about and you're eating noodles and living in the garage, that's fine. Maybe you can do this for a couple of years. But for the great majority of us, we probably live complex lives. We have a family. We may have another hobby or another thing that we also want to grow in. So we need to learn this balance. Now, coming to your question about the water and fire, this is a metaphor for these two different forces in our personality. So one of them I call fire, and that is the energy of desire. And this energy is dissatisfied with the status quo. It's not happy with what you have right now. And that gives you that fire, that fuel to make a change for you to get what you want. So it creates movement. It's more dynamic and it's more future focused. The other energy is the energy of water. And this energy is about accepting and being content with the present moment, right? So the more you have the water energy, the happier you are, the more content and peaceful you are. But there's not much drive, not much energy to make a real change, to achieve something difficult. So we need the right balance of these two forces in our life. If we just have fire, we're going to be really, really obsessed, and too much fire, you're going to burn out. If you have too much water, then you're very relaxed, kind of hippie-like. Everything is good, but you're not expressing your potential. You're not creating something powerful. You're not achieving those long-term goals that you may have. So we want a balance of these two forces. And I don't have the right answer of, is there a rule of thumb? I have thought a lot about this and I haven't found a rule of thumb. What I found in my own life and with the clients that I work with is that it's a different thing for different people, right? So for one person, the balance may be 80% fire and 20% water. For another person, maybe something else. It could even be that in one area of your life, you're very water, maybe like in your family life, you're just kind of relaxed and enjoying and taking time and more playful, etc. But in another area of your life, like health, maybe you're very fire, like you want to be so fit and lose weight and get your dream body, whatever that is. So I find it helpful to think in terms of fire and water. And in the brain, fire is dopamine. It's that neurotransmitter of reward. It makes you focus and makes you be motivated. And water is serotonin. It's when you are enjoying and you are happy here and now.
And what would you recognize yourself to be naturally? What is the ratio for you, fire, water?
Good question. I'm more like a 90% fire, 10% water type of person. But those 10% are really important. Those 10% need to be 100%. And then I can keep my 90% of fire going without burning.
I wouldn't imagine that, man. That I speak to you and everything, and you're ambitious and everything, but you've been probably pulling so much water onto you that you you appear so much more waterish in a
Mm,
way, like mindful, present, right?
mm,
Like I feel like so that's possible, guys. That's what I want to say to everybody who's listening right now. It's you gotta find where you are, as Giovanni says. Like for me, it was really a great insight to while I was reading the book to see this fire and water elements can be you can consider them in each different area from your life, not just this guy is more fireish person, right? But more like, well, when I do sports I might be fire all the way, right? But then when I have my free time I'm a lot more water, right? And when I observe these areas, is there something I need to do to balance out? I do imagine 95% of the people listening to this will be more on the fire element.
mm.
I don't know. But maybe can you provide some practical ideas of those super achievers, passionate people, driven, want to get things done? What can they do to balance out this fire into themselves?
Mm. I think be disciplined about creating a minimum amount of space for the other areas of your life. So this could be, a 2-hour date night that you have with your partner every week, no matter what. It could be making sure that you get your 7 to 8 hours of sleep every day and you don't skip your 10 to 20-minute meditation in the morning. It could mean making sure that you are not going to skip running or exercise at least three times a week. Making sure that you create space for those other areas of your life. And here's the big one, that you take some time off. Taking some time off could be like me 1 day a week. And before I implemented this 1 day a week rule for myself, I work 7 days a week, right? And there's this quote from Confucius that find what you love and you never need to work another day in your life. And that's true. But the other side of this is find what you love and you work every single day in your life, right? And that's where I found myself that I love what I do. So every day I was doing some work. If I'm not meditating and I'm not with my family, if I'm awake and breathing, I'm working. That was my way of being. So, but once I implemented all of these rules for myself, making sure that I have some time off, some time that I'm not making any decision, some time that I'm not thinking about work, some time that by default is non-productive. That time should not be productive, right? It's a different mode of being. That feels much more balanced and sustainable. Because at the end of the day, it's you have goals in your life and you want to focus and you want to achieve them, but sometimes you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself and you're not seeing that you're focusing on doing a lot of things to compensate, perhaps not being super strategic about doing the right things. That was a little bit convoluted, but what I'm trying to say is that if you are super strategic about your efforts in your career, and in any area of life, then you don't need to work that hard. You don't need to use brute force that much. You are doing the right things. Now, if you're not doing that, then there may be a tendency for you to overdoing everything else, to answer emails of every single customer and to go and try every single opportunity. While a lot of that is just, it's effort that feels like work, but it's not really moving the needle for you.
I just remember when you were speaking about that. One of my first speaking mentors, her name is Janet Atwood, and she's the creator of the Passion Test. And the formula of the Passion Test is intention, attention, no tension. And people who have a lot of fire have a huge struggle with the third element, right? They don't have a problem to set the goal, get moving, generate action and so on. But sometimes it's hard to let go. Sometimes it's hard to, when things are not working by plan, we tend to become a little stiff. It's like, oh, it has to work this way and this and that. And as you say, it's not effortless. It's forceful, and because it is, actually you're blocking the channels and the things to happen, like, which is the irony in all this. For me, what works, as somebody who's associating with you, Giovanni, being on the fire side by nature, I need to spend some effort in order to balance myself out. And it comes with consistent exercise, meditation. My body doesn't want me to do that. I feel the resistance when I feel, let's go and do stuff. Why should I exercise, right? I don't have the, but I know that this is going to help me to really be more calm and more present, and my mind is not going to go all around the place. Decreasing caffeine, this is huge, because when you put gas onto the fire, you know what happens, right? So I try to drink 1 cup of coffee a day. That's huge. Walks, going for walks, just walking. Usually I'll listen to an audiobook or a podcast, but you can just walk and meditate, I guess. So drinking a lot of water, so underestimated. Just drinking water for fire people. So but again, as you said, Giovanni, you gotta try and find what works for you. What is the level of balance you want to have? If you're somebody who's extremely driven, and if it works for you, you're feeling fulfilled, happy, aligned, good. Maybe you don't have to change anything. Maybe you're already doing the right things. But if something is off, if you're feeling exhausted or misaligned or nervous and anxious way too often, maybe you want to take a pause and you want to see how things are and whether you can make some changes. And just not to exclude the other side of the story, people who are by default more on the side of the water, what would be your recommendation to them so they can balance out?
Right. Perhaps the main thing would be to contemplate death, to know that we have finite time here on this planet, and what would you like to have done or have achieved when your time is up? What would make your future self look back and feel really proud for the way you've chosen to spend your time? You would definitely not wish you would have spent another extra hour on TikTok or Instagram. You will wish that you have had said no to certain pleasures, to certain comforts, and go for something that you feel strongly about. Try to see what are your aspirations and what you feel strongly about. It could be, those things that you always think about, that you always dream, and that you're naturally passionate about. It could be something that pisses you off, something in the world that pisses you off. That is a lot of fuel there for a journey. But I think the main trick to make this shift from too much water to having a little bit of fire is understanding that fire does not accept things; it wants to change things. and water completely accepts things. Now, you get more of in your life that which you accept. So if you accept that you need to work 9 to 5, and that sometimes you're not going to have money to buy the things you want, or the freedom to go on vacation, yeah, if that's something that you can accept and live with, then you're not going to have fire to change it. But if that's unacceptable, like if you cannot see yourself in that same situation 5 years from now, 10 years from now, then that will build some fire. If you can accept that some people will be disrespectful towards you and will bully you, then you're going to have more of that in your life. If that's unacceptable, then that's going to stop happening very soon. So we get more of those things we accept in our life. And I'm not saying that again, it's the balance between fire and water. Accepting is important, and sometimes not accepting is the right answer. It's the right approach. So if there's something in your life that you have been accepting too much or being too relaxed about, or if you feel that you can take a little bit of pain and go through a journey to achieve something that is meaningful for you, then cultivate that fire. Little by little, step by step, take action in the direction of your dreams, and expect that you will meet obstacles. You will meet obstacles probably at every step of the way. That is part of the journey. And it doesn't matter. The important thing is that you are moving towards something that is meaningful for you. And at the end, if you don't achieve your goal, at least you have gone through a journey that has helped you grow as a human being. And if you achieve your goal, that's a nice cherry on the top.
Man, this is so good. This is so good. When I've never had to deal with, obviously I'm more on the fire part, but I never had to deal with, I'm afraid of uncertainty. But I would imagine there's many people out there that have just don't want to get into the zone of uncertainty or discomfort, or there's something new that I don't know about. I'd rather stay in my lane and do it mindfully, they say. But in many ways, progress comes when we face uncertainty and we manage to navigate, right? You jump into the water and then figure out how to swim. And that's been my way of doing things, which sometimes get me into trouble. But then I can observe people who are on the opposite side of the lane, that they're afraid to push themselves unless everything is being planned and certain, and it looks like they have almost no space for failure. So that's when they'll make a move. Just one thing I wanted to add when you were talking about all these great tips is, if you are more a water kind of person, maybe you want to surround yourselves with some fire people, right? And the opposite as well. I love to meet, man, I love to meet my my friends that are spiritual and they're in meditation, and in my mind it's like, man, these guys have so much potential, but they don't move. I want to get you move, like you can inspire, you can impact so much people. And they're like, spent so much action today. I sent 2 emails. I'm like, oh my God, I need to, like I have this desire to give them some fire, but at the same time, I'm getting so much inspiration by how present they are and how much they enjoy life. And it's like, wow, I'm having a cup of tea and it's beautiful and enjoy the moment. I'm like, God, I needed that, because this awakens some parts of me that naturally I'm going to ignore or push aside because I'm super focused on achieving things. So, but I wonder, what would you agree with us? Like, do we have to surround ourselves with people on the other side so we can balance out?
Well, the only shortcut to self-discipline that I know is spending time in the company of people who have achieved your goal or who represent the qualities that you want to embody, right? That's, we human beings, we, because of the mirror neurons and some other reasons as well, we easily get the mindsets, the way of thinking, the likes and dislikes, the fears and desires of the people around us, right? So yes, and these are groups that often don't mix, right? Those that are too much water, they look at the fire guys and they're like, what is all this fuss about? I mean, you think that achieving that thing is going to make you happy? Like that's their point of view. And people who are too much fire, they look at the water ones and you guys are just so lazy. Like you don't want anything. You're just kind of hippies. So there is a bit of this, right? But if both of those groups are seeking the balance and going towards the center, yeah, then I think the water guys should go and spend some time in some entrepreneurial meetings, and the fire guys should maybe go and camp with the water guys and play guitar the whole night. I think
And
that's what they need.
the irony, Giovanni, is that usually it's not what they do or what we do, right? The water guy is going to be, I need to go to a meditation retreat. I'm not doing enough. No, dude, you've been meditating for 2 months and you haven't done anything. Go to a business, whatever. Start calling clients, right? If that's what you want to do. If you want to get more clients, you don't need a meditation retreat. Maybe the fire guy needs one because he's been too much all over the place. So, but it's not the natural thing, right? We like to go to the places that we feel comfortable at, right? So it's super interesting. So those of you who are listening, try and figure out where are you on the scale and see what can you do to balance out. And just one final practical advice from my side is it's very easy to connect with people, guys. Right? I'm talking to Giovanni right now. Right? I'm admire his work. I can learn a lot from him. As much as I love to do this podcast for the audience, I also do it for myself so I can get inspired and get a chance to ask fantastic people like Giovanni these questions and get their wisdom. There's multiple ways to reach out and to surround yourself with incredible people. One of them, creating a mastermind group or a club, right? Just who are some people that I want to have closer around me that I can meet? What can I do to create value for these people? And then how do I spend more time around these people? And to begin with, you can always start with listen to a podcast, get Giovanni's book, right? He's working on an audiobook, right? So get the audiobook, get the listen to podcasts, learn, get this energy from the people that you want to be like. So just something to I get a little bit off track, Giovanni, but I'm just getting excited from all the great stuff that you've been sharing. So okay, let's move on. The something else I read in the book, which I found very profound, is you talk about the difference between being interested and being committed. So can you share with me what is the triple commitment?
Yeah. So when you're being interested, you're kind of like you are looking at it. You're not fully there. You're not. It's not part of your life. You have not made a commitment. You have not determined that, like, look, I want to do this. I'm gonna get this done. I'm going to achieve this. You're just kind of like, let's see what's going to happen. And there's not enough energy there. There's not enough momentum there for you to create something great, for you to go through difficult obstacles. It's just like when you are in that state, the first time that you see one big obstacle, you're going to turn around because you don't have the energy, the motivation, the vision to cross over. Now, when you are committed, of course, we can say that there are many levels of commitment, but the more committed you are, the more energy and willpower and motivation you're going to have to go through the obstacles. And if you're 100% committed, then you're going to fly towards your goal like an arrow towards the target. And so what we need more is commitment. Self-discipline is about commitment versus motivation. Motivation is a feeling, and all feelings come and go. So if you want to take action every day towards your goals, you cannot rely on something that comes and go. You need to rely on something that is there every day, no matter what. And that is commitment. Commitment doesn't ask, hey, how do you feel today? Do you feel like doing this? No, commitment is like, okay, I've decided to do this. I'll do it. And there's so much power in that. And you also save so much energy because you don't need to make decisions anymore. If you make a commitment that from today until the end of the year, you're going to write for 1 hour. When you wake up in the morning, you don't need to decide what do I do next. Do I write today or not? But I'm tired. Doesn't matter. You've made a commitment. You do it. So commitment saves energy. Commitment allows us to really stay on track with our goals. So the triple commitment is basically we have three core resources in our life: our time, our money, and our energy. And I don't need to have a crystal ball to know what's going to happen in your future. If I see where you're putting your time, your money, and your energy, then we know what's going to happen. If you care about your goals, if you care about your aspirations, then make sure on a regular basis you are dedicating part of your time, of your money, and of your energy for it. Otherwise, it's just wishful thinking. It is a wish, not a commitment.
I love it, man. And by the way, guys, once again, you gotta go and you gotta get a copy of this book. The book is called Mindful Self Discipline. Have a look. This is the Kindle version, but you can also get a paper one, and you'll find lots of tools, lots of practical advice. I love the part, and it's very much in depth developed in the book. The part that how do you actually figure out the purpose, how do you align it with the goals, and then once you go through these processes, which are really developed in the book, once you're clear around those things, this is when you can start following through in a mindful way and be disciplined, because this is some, I feel like, Giovanni, I relate so much with the material there. Sometimes we are not committed just because we're not aligned, right? Like you set yourself this diet or whatever, and you start doing it, and after 5 days it's like, I probably skip the day. It's not because you're a bad person and you can't follow through. It's because you just haven't connected this discipline to the bigger picture, to your goals, to your purpose, to the things that make you happy. Could you talk to us about this? The How do we connect, in a short way, of course, but how do we connect the how do we figure out what our purpose is and connect our self disciplines around this?
Yeah. Well, so in the book I share 17 different questions that people can use to find your purpose. And there's also a free workbook they can download with those questions. There's several other exercises. I'm not sure we're going to have time to go into them, but I really like to zoom into this, the importance of linking your habits with your aspirations. So it's one thing to, want to exercise every day because you think you should. And it's the other thing to know that, you know what, my aspiration is to really be, full of energy, and to live very long so I can spend more time with my family. Let's say if that is the aspiration, then you look at the habit of exercising every day under the light of that aspiration. That suddenly has a completely new meaning for you, right? It's not about getting to 10,000 steps. It's about you being the person you want to be. It's about you living life according to what is important for you. Another example, let's say that someone tells an executive in your company that, hey, maybe you should try meditation, it's going to be good for you. He's like, ah. Now imagine that person understands what are his values. Okay, I want to be the best leader I can be. I want to leave a legacy in this company. Let's say that's that person's aspiration, their values. And then let's say that they begin to understand that meditation will help you become more aware. It will help you become a better communicator. It will help you control your impulses. And all of this is essential for you to be the leader you want to be. Now, here's how you meditate. That's a completely different context for that same habit. And with this context, that habit is more likely to stick. And you're going to enjoy it more because you see the purpose. It's connected with those things that are deepest in you.
Love it, man. Absolutely love it. And you also talk about the three pillars of living a purposeful life, which is ownership, self belief, and sabotage. If I recall them correctly.
Okay, so in mindful self-discipline, there are three pillars to mindful self-discipline, and the first one is aspiration. And in the whole section of the book that I'm talking about, aspiration pillar, I said that it's not enough for you to discover what is your aspiration and to create goals for it, but you need to make sure that you have these three things. One, that you have a sense of ownership. And ownership is taking full control over your life. It's focusing on the things you can control and accepting the things you cannot control. You see here the fire of water imbalance. You focus on what you can control, you take action there. You accept what you cannot control because there's nothing else you can do there. And how do you know when you're taking ownership? You're not blaming anybody. You're not complaining. You're taking action. You're focusing on what you can do. So unless you have a sense of ownership, it doesn't make sense to talk about a dream and purpose and aspiration, because deep down you feel like it's not up to me. Well, it is. So ownership is one of the important things for you to be able to have that pillar of aspiration strongly. The second one is self-belief. And self-belief is not about being arrogant. It's not about being cocky, or it's not about bravado. It's not about thinking that nothing bad is going to happen. It's about choosing to believe in yourself, choosing to believe that whatever obstacle life throws your way, you will eventually find a way to overcome it. And that is a belief. It is something that you choose to believe. No one can prove it to you, but if you believe it, then you can prove it to yourself. If you have self-belief, then you will embrace your aspiration. If you don't have self-belief, that means that you have self-doubt. Maybe you're doubting your capacity to achieve that goal. Maybe you are doubting the goal itself. Maybe that's not what I meant to do. Maybe that's not that important. It's not worth the effort. Or maybe you're doubting the journey. I'm not sure that this will really take me there. And when you're doubting, it's like a poison. It's like a virus in the mind. You are giving away your power. Imagine that you want to lose some weight, and you're all the time doubting that the diet you chose is going to help you. You're not really going to try, are you? It's like you're just waiting for a reason to give up and to confirm your belief. So self-belief is extremely important for us to embrace and live our aspirations. And the third one is resolving self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is when part of you wants your goal and the other part of you doesn't. There's another part of you that may not want your goal because that part is afraid. It's almost always fear. It could be fear of failure, that if I embrace this fully and I fail, it's going to be painful. It's going to be embarrassing. People are going to reject me. I won't be able to recover. All of that. It could be, for some people, fear of success, that if I actually succeed, I don't know who I'm going to be anymore. Maybe my friends won't recognize me. Maybe I'm going to lose some friends because now I'm at a different level and they can't connect. It could be some limiting beliefs that you have about success. Or it could be the fear of the journey itself, that this is going to be too difficult, this is going to be long, that is going to be painful. I don't know if I want that. I don't know if I'm capable of that. So there are many different reasons for which a part of you could come up and feel like, maybe not, maybe let's not do that. And if you don't resolve that inner conflict, that resistance, that self-sabotage, it's like you're moving forward with the handbrake on. You're going to have to put in a lot of effort, and there's a limit of how far you can go. So taking ownership of your life, believing in yourself, and resolving self-sabotage are three important elements for you to have a strong aspiration.
So well explained. And on the topic of self-sabotage, it was interesting that you mentioned that we have these different inner voices that sometimes have a different opinion. And what do we do? Like, is the first step again awareness about how do we recognize where the roots of self-sabotage are, and then what can we do to address them so we can get in alignment and get rid of all the weed on the way so we can smoothly go towards our goals and aspirations?
Yeah. So there are two questions there. First, how do we recognize self-sabotage? When you're not 100% in, right, then there's self-sabotage. When you feel uncertain whether you should do this or not, then it means like whenever there is a division in you, you're not wholeheartedly present. There's no integrity in the sense that you're not working or functioning as one individual. You're functioning as multiple parts that kind of have different opinions, desires, fears, agendas. Then there is self-sabotage. When you find that whenever you have the opportunity to work on your goal, you find an excuse not to do that. You procrastinate, you get distracted with something less important. All of these are telltale signs for me that there is self-sabotage somewhere in there. And one test that I like to do is I call it the red pill test, making no reference to the Matrix. And this is, imagine I have a red pill here in my hand, and I said, if you take this pill, your goal will be achieved immediately. Would you take it? And notice what happens in you when you receive this question. Is there like a wholehearted, yes, give me that pill? Like your whole body wants it. Or is there some hesitation? Is the answer is kind of weak, like, yeah, I guess, yeah, cool, yeah, give me the pill. That's very different from like, yeah, give me that pill. And I worked a lot coaching people with anxiety, and that's one of the first things that I asked them. And some people, they are fully ready. They're like, yeah, give me that damn pill. Like, I need it yesterday. And some people is like, oh, no, actually, I'm not sure I want the pill. And no, that is why they haven't solved anxiety yet, because anxiety is serving a part of them. And it's different things for different people. But just to give you an idea, some people feel that anxiety keeps them moving, that if they're not anxious about something, they are going to be lazy and not make an effort. Other people feel that anxiety protects them because it makes them kind of be hyper vigilant about what could go wrong. So these are just some simple examples of self-sabotage on the topic of anxiety. And hearing these words, I think you, the listener, knows if there is some self-sabotage in you.
And this is how we realize and recognize, get aware that there's some self-sabotage tendencies. Is there any actionable advice on how we can start dealing with it from here on, once that we are aware about what could these conflicting beliefs be?
Mm-hmm. And here probably there is the regular macho self-discipline approach to it, and then the mindful self-discipline approach to it. And I could imagine that the macho self-discipline approach to it is you just kill that part, you just be tough, and you just kind of go forward and ignore that. And there's something to be said about that. Sometimes, in some cases, there's this quote, I think it's from, is it from Salvador Dali or from Monet, that he says, if there is a voice in you that says you cannot paint, and that voice will be silent. Right? So there is power in that as well. It can work, but often that works more as a form of self-repression, that you're trying to annihilate a part of yourself, and it doesn't really work that way, because that part then gets the message like, hey, I'm not welcome in consciousness because that guy wants to get rid of me. But that part doesn't disappear like that. It continues there, and it shows up in very hidden ways. It's still influencing your life, but you are less aware of it. So the more awareness-based approach, the more mindful approach would be to try to understand what that part wants, to meet that part, to have a dialogue with it, and see if you can fulfill its needs without it needing to hold you back. And in therapy, there is a system called IFS, Internal Family Systems. There's another one called voice dialogue, and they both use this methodology. I can't explain how everyone can do this because it's really unique for every person. But at least I can share that such a thing exists, and you can try on your own, see if you can have a dialogue with that part and see what that part needs. Perhaps it's a part of you that is stuck in the past, and that part of you is still 8 years old, and it's using a coping mechanism, a way of navigating life that worked when you were 8, and that's why it continues. But you're not 8 anymore. Now you have more resources, and that part hasn't grown up, and it won't grow up on itself. It needs your help. So as you become more conscious, more aware, and more integrated, that can happen.
And that leads me to a question. Do you believe every person needs to go through therapy? in order to accelerate these processes?
That's an interesting question. I think almost everybody can benefit from it. But again, there are so many modalities of therapy. There's like over 400 modalities. And then even within the same modality, you may find like one practitioner may not be able to help you at all, may even make things worse. And another practitioner may be exactly what you need. So it's tough. Like it's like, how do you find the right way for you? It's tough. You may need to try different things until, or work with someone who has tried different things and can kind of have a sense for what would work best for you. But yes, I think almost everybody in some stage in their journey could benefit from having another person work as a mirror for them, because we have our blind spots, the things that we can't see. And if we have someone working as a mirror for us, be it a therapist, be it a coach, that can help us accelerate the process.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting topic, and I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and business people, and many of them, they recognize that they need help, but they're struggling to figure out, how do I find the right person? Should I look for a mentor that's pushing me and giving me feedback, like telling me how things should be based on their experience? Should I look for a coach that will be like a mirror? Should I go into therapy or psychology and get some different type of help? And I don't know what's your take on that, but I think it'd be relevant to hear, how do we choose the right kind of help?
Yeah, it's. I don't think there's a good rule of thumb. It's going to be different things for different people. For someone, like a CBT therapy would be like amazing. For other people, it won't do anything for them. And the same thing for every modality. I think the best would be to try to see, educate yourself, read about the different modalities of personal work that there are out there. See if you find a person you can connect with, and then start the work. And if after a while it's not helping or making things worse, then move on to somebody else. It's a little bit like the question, like, hey, how do we find the right partner? Right? Like, I don't know. How do you find the right partner?
No, but I think I love your answer of
Hmm.
because many people are like, I need to find the perfect person to, and how do I find it? It's like, well, maybe you gotta go and give it a try and see what works for you. And sometimes just assigning demo session with 5 or 10 people and just feeling with your guts, which of those feels like that's something that I need at the moment. Maybe in 3 months you might need some different type of help, but uh, the trial approach, I love that. And Giovanni, a final area that I want to explore a little bit before we wrap this up. At the end of the day, this podcast is called Productivity Mastery. By the way, if you guys went to LinkedIn and saw the LinkedIn page of Productivity Mastery, you'll see on the cover page it says the art of mindful productivity. So I'm really all about mindful, and my question would be, what is mindful time management, and how do we apply mindful time management, Giovanni?
There are many good books written about time management. And when I was writing Mindful Self-Discipline, I see self-discipline as the master thread across many different topics of personal development. Focus, productivity, time management, habits, finding purpose, distraction, procrastination. So like all of these topics, for me, self-discipline is the master thread that makes sense of all of this. And so I wanted to write a chapter on time management, which I did. But my approach to time management is, the other systems out there focus a lot on two principles, which are important, and I include them as well, which is how to plan your time effectively, and then how to create boundaries, how to say no to other people and create boundaries to make sure that you actually follow the plan. So in mindful time management, these are the principles of time planning and time boundaries. Now, there's another principle that we rarely read about, and I call it time awareness. That you may have the best plan in the world, but unless you are aware of time, unless you are aware of how you're spending your time in the moment, it's not going to work. So when you so many people hearing this podcast may relate to this, that you had planned to do this thing, let's say from 1 to 2, and then you're going to take a short break and you're going to do this other thing, and that short break was supposed to be a 10-minute break, and you end up spending 40 minutes on YouTube, or you end up doing many other things. Now that happens because you are not aware of time. You are not aware of how you spend your time. You forgot, and you got sucked into a distraction. Now, time awareness is making your watch your best friend, becoming more aware of your time. Like, what am I supposed to be doing now? How much time do I have left in this time slot? And what do I need for the next thing? Like, when does the next thing begin? So, when you are like this, you can actually execute your plan more effectively. So, learning how to be more aware of your time. And there are many tools for that. As I said, make your favorite timepiece your best friend. You can also use countdown timers. So what I often suggest for my clients, especially the ones with ADHD, is when you decide to do a task or an activity that doesn't have a clear end date, decide on how much time you want to dedicate for it. Put a countdown timer. When the timer goes off, you finish. So if you have 10 minutes to spend on your phone before your next thing, then put a timer for 10 minutes. And at least your phone will help you become more aware of time. And there are also other tools that I talk about, such as how to use your calendar effectively and using time tracking apps, etc. But the idea that you cannot manage what you are not aware of. I think the saying in business is what you don't measure, you don't manage. And so it all begins with awareness, which is the core theme of mindful self-discipline.
And I feel like some people get scared when you invite them to be better in the first two elements that you mentioned, right? Like with planning, with prioritization, having a method, scheduling. Uh, but the reality is you don't have to follow through like a soldier, right? Like you don't have to be completely rigid. The beauty of planning, the beauty of setting objectives and desired outcomes, and even to define time blocks from 9 to 10:30, I'm going to work on the draft of this contract. Okay, great. When you set that up, it doesn't lock you 100%. Like you might have your list of tasks for the day, and these are my results I want to get done today. This is my best plan as of the evening. But when I wake up in the morning, I realize, you know what? I feel like I'm very creative right now. So I can move this thing and this thing. I'm still going to get them done, but you got to be aware about how you feel, right? It's not an excuse. You're still gonna get your breaks. You're still gonna get things done, but in a more mindful way. How do I feel about it? Sometimes you wake up in the morning, you're not feeling I'm super creative right now. You're maybe tired. You slept. You woke up at the wrong side of the bed. Okay, what can I do to get the most out of this day? Maybe I need to, instead of the concept of Brian Tracy, eat that frog, start with a heavy task, which is a brilliant concept. I love it. You have to prioritize the heaviest task to begin with because you're freshest in the morning. Not every morning though. Some mornings you just need some momentum. What is the easiest thing I can do today because I'm not feeling well? So I can get a bit of momentum, can give me a bit of fire, and then I can get moving with the harder task. So it's always about being aware with this. But you gotta start with having an idea. Where am I going? Where do I want to be? What are the goals? Giovanni, I love it. The concept, the book, the everything you do. I'm a big fan already. Mindful self-discipline, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you who are listening to the podcast, do yourself a favor. Go to Amazon and find this book, Mindful Self-Discipline by Giovanni Dienstmann, and just read it. Start applying the principles. It's going to be a game changer. At the end of the day, we all want to have to be. We all want to be disciplined, but we don't want to force ourselves into it. We should redefine how discipline is being perceived. And that's why I believe Giovanni's work is so profound, is about falling in love with discipline, because discipline gives us what we want. and we want to have a more purposeful life. So thank you so much, Giovanni, for the work that you're doing, for everything you do. Can't wait for to follow your journey, all the other great things that you're doing. But Giovanni, give us a bit of a overview before we wrap it up. Where could people find you, get in touch with you? If they're excited to work with you, how can they contact you?
Sure. So I think the logical first step is getting the book. That's where it all begins. I have two websites. One of them is liveandthere.com, and that is about meditation and well-being. And then mindfulselfdiscipline.com, and that's about the topics we have been covering today. So there is the book, and for those of you who want to go deeper, there is an app with specific guided meditations that will help you become more disciplined, with summaries from the books, with some other tools. And I also do one-on-one coaching.
So make sure to reach out to Giovanni if you're interested to get deeper. I'm sure that the one-on-one coaching might be the thing for you. Reach out, get the book. And once again, thanks everybody for being with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with a friend. Give us a rating on Apple Podcasts. Share the episode on your social media, you name it. We really appreciate all of these things. Thank you so much, and see you once again at the next episode of Productivity Mastery.